now available in paperback. From the author of the critically acclaimed book The Man Crisis comes The Woman Crisis. Learn why so many women have become lost in their quest to have it all in The Woman Crisis. Get your copy of The Woman Crisis in paperback at Amazon.com and online booksellers today. One of my viewers wanted an answer to the critical question, are racism and sexism population control tactics? And the answer to that question is yes, because white supremacy uses both racism and sexism as a way to go out here and control the world and be able to create the infrastructure for its world system. Now, white supremacy needs racism and sexism in order to control the world population because they need the world population to buy into the lie that the devil told the white man that he has been given dominion over the earth and that he and his white woman are the dominant individuals who are supposed to be the overall stewards of the world in his world system. And in order for them to be able to have that power given to them by the devil under that lie, they need to go out here and divide people so that they can go out here and conquer those people. That is why your white supremacy needs racism and sexism to control the population, and it needs anti-black racism above all other forms of discrimination, because with anti-black racism, they are allowed the ability to put somebody at the bottom, and with that person, a group of people at the bottom, all of the other groups feel like they have some semblance of superiority, and they buy into a covert contract where they believe if they gain the favor of the white supremacist, they can go out here and rise up the ranks in their racial pecking order. Because as long as the black man and black woman are at the bottom and can be blamed for all of the problems of the world, many of those who, like Hispanics, Asians, Arabs, and many others like Pacific Islanders, they can buy into the lie of white supremacy. And as they buy into the lie of white supremacy, this allows the white supremacist to be able to control the population and be able to manipulate the narrative, and allows the white supremacist to have people following him on their terms. So what happens is that the white supremacist, under his system of white supremacy, he uses anti-black racism to control all of these other populations, and he uses all of this aspiration to be like the white supremacist and the covert contract he creates with these other minorities to have them jockeying for a favorable position in his system. And as they're jockeying for a favorable position in his system, they are looking for ways to oppress black people, who many believe are the reason why society isn't working out right. They have bought into the lie and propaganda that the white supremacist has told, and as they're buying into that propaganda, believing that the black man and black woman who were slaves in the America, they believe that this small group of people are responsible for all of the problems in the world, and they believe if they go out here and support the white supremacists in keeping black men and black women in a second-class status in the world, they will be elevated to a higher position in the white supremacist pecking order. And what is even worse is that you'll get black people like these sellouts and these bootlicks who will also buy into this white supremacist system and look to throw their own people under the bus. So racism is a great tool that the white supremacist uses to control the population, and he uses this tool to go out here and manipulate the masses so that they will go out here and look to oppress each other and not look to go out here and build their own economic and political systems. No, what most people will do because they want to gain favor under the white supremacist world system is they go out here, the population follows like sheep, following the white supremacist and his white woman, and as they're following them, this leads to the population following the white supremacist, and it's one of the greatest forms of population control ever made, the system of white supremacy. So yes, racism is a great population control tactic. It's a way that you can go out here and control the thinking of entire nations of people, because what the white supremacist has done over the last 200 years or even 400 years is brainwash most people all over the world to see the heterosexual black man as the world's greatest enemy, and also brainwashed most of the world to believe that your black woman is one of the most sexually promiscuous women on the planet. And when you look at the actual facts, none of that is true. The person who is the most dangerous person in the world is the white supremacist, and the most sexually promiscuous woman in the world is the modern white woman. But you won't have people believing that fact because they have been brainwashed by the racist population control tactics of the white supremacist, who wants to go out here and promote anti-black narratives and promote anti-black racism all over the world as the standard of life for most people to follow. Because as long as people are following into the narratives of white supremacy and buying into anti-black racism, they are a population that he can and she can control and go out here and manipulate to go out here and do their dirty work as they look to climb up an imaginary social ladder to gain white acceptance. So racism is one of the greatest tools of population control, because with a divided population, you can conquer people. And when you have a divided people, the world does not stand, and the institution of white supremacy is allowed to go on. Now, the viewer also asks, are sexism a population control tactic? And yes, it is also a population control tactic. Sexism is a way that your white supremacist goes out here and oppresses most women. And the way he oppresses women is by taking them out of God's natural order and giving them a full semblance of power under the institution of feminism. So your white supremacist, he does not want to see the population of women being helpmeets under God's natural order, because when women become helpmeets, they eventually graduate to become mothers, and as they're working with a man, they're teaching a healthy culture under God's order of promoting the gospel of Jesus Christ to the next generation. And the white supremacist wants the women to go out here and be controlled, because if he can control the women through sexism, what he can do is have them pushing the ideology of white supremacy. And as they're pushing the ideology of white supremacy, we don't get the gospel preached to the world. No, we get white supremacy promoted as a culture and an ideal, and that's how your white supremacist goes out here and controls the population of women through your feminism. Ironically, while these women are believing that they're being empowered, that population of women is actually being controlled by white supremacy, and as they're being controlled by white supremacy, they are out here promoting the foundations of feminism, which is just white supremacy, and it's white supremacy practiced by women. And this white supremacy is designed, again, to control the population of women, to ensure that the culture of white supremacy is taught and promoted to the next generation, and that creates another generation of white supremacists and allows the ideology of white supremacy to be socially engineered to the next generation. So yes, sexism is a population control tactic, but it is not about oppressing women by saying, oh, women aren't supposed to do certain things like preach in the church, which is what the Bible has said. No, their sexism is about giving women this false sense of empowerment, and when they give them that false sense of empowerment and take them out of their role in God's order, what happens is allows the white supremacists to control the population of women, and once they have control over that population of women is out here being a consumer and on its way to promoting the foundations of white supremacy and becoming an obedient and perfect worker inside of white supremacy's corporate industrial complex. I go in depth on this in my book, The Woman Crisis, on how the woman is controlled by what I call the state, which is white supremacy. And again, they use these population control tactics to control the masses and have the masses following down the road of white supremacy. This is all around the subtle politics transpiring around white supremacy, and most people, they don't understand this subtle politics because they don't understand how the white supremacist is out here using these psychological tactics to control the populations of both men and women. And when they use these psychological tactics, they can divide a people through race, through gender, and go out here and use this to conquer people, because the white supremacist business is war. As I talked about in my book, why 70% of black women are single, and the business of his war is to continue selling guns and butter to those groups that he's divided in his population control. And as he's selling them guns and butter, they are fighting against each other, and he's profiteering at their expense. And in order for him to be able to finance and fund his race wars and his gender wars, what he needs to do is go out here and start sowing the seeds of discord between men and men and men and women. And that's how he gains control, because white supremacy, as Professor Black Truth and your Neely Fuller Jr. have stated multiple times, take both sides in the argument, and they also take both sides in the war, and they take both sides in the war so that they can win whether either side wins, and whether either side wins, he still pulls a profit, because he's controlling both sides of the argument, he's controlling both sides of the population, he's controlling both sides of the narrative. So it didn't matter which side you take. When the white supremacist gets a hold of the narrative, they are going to divide people and pit one against the other. And they've been doing this for centuries with different countries they've colonized, and did this to multiple nations of indigenous peoples they have conquered. They would come into people's lands, and they would go out here and use the institution of white supremacy by saying that they were white and they're superior. And because many get spellbound by the wampum and trinkets these white supremacists have, they go out here and look to gain favor with them and turn on their fellow countrymen or their fellow woman and look to sell them out in order to gain favor with the white supremacists. Now, the only people who I've seen ever stand up to the white supremacists in history were the Japanese, who stood up to them for over 800 years, and they stood up to them even though they were offering them trinkets. The nations of Japan before World War II stood up to the white supremacists and said, I want nothing to do with you, and were basically cut out of the world for over 800 years. And that was because they all thought of themselves as not buying into the system of white supremacy. But the system of white supremacy is a lie, and it is one of the greatest lies ever told by the devil. And the devil uses it to go out here and divide and conquer both men and women. And part of the tactic that they use in order to control people
are racism and sexism. Again, if you can go out here and divide people, you can conquer them, because as the Bible has stated, a house that is divided cannot stand. And when you have a racist going out here telling a side that they can gain favor with them because they have become spellbound and bought into the system of white supremacy, that makes it where those people are easier to conquer, because when you're fighting yourself, you're not working together. And that allows him to control a population of people. And this is how your white supremacists have gone out here and conquered multiple countries all over the world and made the institution of white supremacy global. So the viewer wanted to know, are racism and population control tactics? Yes, they are, and they're very effective. Unfortunately, we have many people out here who don't know how dangerous these tactics are, because they don't understand the subtle politics transpiring around them. But as someone who understands the subtle politics transpiring around me, I understand how dangerous your racism and sexism are. They're used to manipulate populations. They were used to demonize black men and make the world believe that the black man is a sexual predator. They were used to demonize black women and make them believe that the world believed that they were sexually promiscuous and loud and argumentative. And if you look past it, you see the white supremacist projecting his own insecurities and inadequacies onto black people. And again, all about controlling the population, controlling the perception of people through these racism and sexism, and all about controlling people, like what the feminist does by saying a traditional woman is sexist, all about controlling the population to make them fall lockstep into the white supremacist narrative and follow in their footsteps in a ragdoll dance, entranced, all about getting them to go and be able to do his dirty work in the entire white supremacist system, and all about making sure that the population is controlled and following the religion and gospel of white supremacy. I'm hoping that this answers the question of my viewer, are racism and sexism population control tactics? And this was a video requested by one of my viewers. And if you want to request a video, you can send a donation to the Cash App or the PayPal. And if I know something about that subject, I will make that video for you. And if you want to pick up some of my books that I mentioned in this video, like The Woman Crisis and Why 70% of Black Women Are Single, you can find those books along with my other books in fiction and nonfiction on the SJS Direct imprint on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find my books at other online booksellers like Barnes & Noble, Smashwords, the iBookstore, Google Play, and even Walmart. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.
Now available in paperback and Kindle, Stop Simping in Cyberspace. Learn how to avoid predatory females like Instagram models and e-girls in their virtual con games with Stop Simping in Cyberspace. Get your copy of Stop Simping in Cyberspace in paperback and Kindle today.